Comrade Tito was an intellectual, no doubt about it. He was an economist. He was an all-round political intellectual, revolutionary intellectual, erudite, loyal servant of the African National Congress. That was Tito Mboweni to us. He could interact with anyone, with any topic, with no difficulties. That is what he was to everyone. You may think that something is very difficult, but Comrade Tito was very easy for him to unpack and engage. And he was not afraid of opponents, strategic opponents. He would not confuse a strategic opponent to an enemy. He understood this. That is why he will reach out to the EFF. You know, when the EFF dropped in this election, he said, no, they are not, they must not be erased in the political map. They will actually come back. So he was a versatile political animal, but at the same time, in a true ANC style. He was not afraid of strategic opponents. He understood them as such because he believed in the theory of the revolution, that it is superior. He was an ideologue of the African National Congress. Tito Mboweni will be remembered as an architect generation led by Thabo Mbeki, Trevor Manuel, and them, who laid the foundation for macroeconomic stability in this country. And I remember him vividly when he was asked the question, when he became the governor. He said that the economic fundamentals are intact, the economy is in safe hands, so let's move on. And that was it. These comrades, when we came in, we were faced with a bigger challenge. We told the people of South Africa that we will implement what is called RDP, Reconstruction and Development Program. But we didn't know what is behind the counter. When we got into power, behind the counter, like President Mbeki will also explain that when they arrived, it was only a phone and a desk, and they had to navigate. And when we got into power, the Boers had bankrupted this economy, and there was no money to fund the RDP. So there was no financial capital to fund the Reconstruction and Development Program. Because we said to people who were like, Father Christmas, what do you want? We want houses. What do you want? We want this. And all of these things for free. But here we come into power, we don't have money to fund the RDP. So they implemented GEAR, just like the confusion today, that we thought, some of us who lacked in tools of analysis, that GEAR was a strategic goal. And then they taught us that no, GEAR is not a strategic goal, it's a tactic. It will be abandoned at any given point in time. It is something that will help us overcome these obstacles that we are faced with. We are the only economy in between Brazil and Cuba, and not Cuba, Zimbabwe, that survived structural adjustment programs of the IMF and the World Bank, but faced with a bigger challenge of a debt trap and the debt that was left by the apartheid regime to us. So Tito Mboweni was part of that group of leaders of the ANC. I say group because belonging in the same meeting does not mean you are the same generation. So I hear people when I speak, they think we are the same generation. We are not. We might be in the same leadership, but we are not the same generation. I say group because in that group there was Thabo Mbeki. There were others who did not belong in the same generation, but same group of leaders who navigated in our country in a difficult period. Of course, we had differences like we do have today with COSATU, SACP, that it's a class project, GEAR. And we said GEAR is not cast in stone. I remember I was on the side of the Youth League and we were called drum majorettes. of the ANC. Proudly so. And we were singing the song, Gia, Bati, Gia Sifuni. Like now, Abaifuni GNU Abany. Not as Ifuni GNU. Not even Ifuni Gia, but it was an instrument we were using to navigate at the difficult period when we came into power. And they implemented all those measures, including the restructuring of state assets. Safika mapunu apa o Aventura e bugu kalapa. And then the state was owning dams, Aventuras and so on. We sold those things and privatized. We said the state cannot own dams. And then we used that money to fund our own programs of reconstruction and development. Tito Mboweni was there, governor number 8. The first black governor after apartheid, appointed by our government and by President Thabo Mbeki. And I remember when he came in, and then there was this black comrade, and he was black indeed. Nyama, 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 nyama. And then what Bamba from crystals. Why Bamba? Up until he came back and gave and said, I've done my job, and he did it. Tito is leaving us with a great legacy. And I'm not saying in a patronizing, great legacy. This man was never held in front of our nation for any corrupt activity. He was a man who lived a simple life, who went on with his life, and who loved his people. That's what Tito, who he was. He loved his people. And then when he was a minister, was bulalange austerity measures lomtu. Was stabiliza economy. Watata ma credit card, ama ministers. Sashega ne blue light kuphela. Tito Mboweni. So I like that song of Caspar Nyovest, Tito Mboweni. Sha sha. And then when he became Minister of Finance, he implemented strict austerity measures. And that's what he did. And then we were driving cars at 2 million, 1.2 million. Tito Mboweni was taking his imotos 700,000. Was Lisa ezindaweni. What comrades, we must come to this point. That was Tito. And I'm saying that in our government, which I had an opportunity appointed by President Ramaphosa to serve with him, he implemented those austerity measures. And he was very, very concerned about state assets that were like, taking a lot from the fiscus. We had long discussions with him and PG about that, particularly saving SAA and scrapping the e-tolls. So I frequented Kilani, this other side. We were discussing the e-tolls. And then we'll discuss, 10 o'clock, you will say, let's leave it, young man. We'll finalize it next week. And then he will say, Mbalula, you must always think about difficult things. Don't rush. And all of that. So I was rushing. I thought scrapping e-tolls was ABC, easy. It was difficult.